Hi, and welcome to this episode of the DC Life podcast. I'm Nathan.
I'm Georgie, and today we're going to chat with someone about something in the life of our church.
Okay, well, we are back in the studio, and we have a special guest with us this week, Tim McCallum. G'day, Tim.
Hi, guys.
Hello, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
We're very excited to interview you today for another testimony from one of the members of DC.
I am very excited. I've loved listening to them all so far.
Glad to hear it.
We've saved our best for now, clearly.
No, I truly feel very humbled, very honoured that I've been plucked out of the
Ether.
out of the ether, and feel very blessed that I can share my faith journey.
Very good. Well, Tim, tell us about your younger years.
Oh, the younger years.
Did you have hair?
Little Tim, I did. I actually didn't grow hair until I was 3, and then I lost it at 16.
Oh, no.
So I haven't had hair for a very long time in my life. Little Tim, I grew up in small country town of Geelong down in Victoria. Not so small, but mother and father and a younger sister, Noni, who thought she was my older sister. She still likes to remind me, but no, younger sister Noni. And predominantly our family, my mum and dad and grandparents mainly came from the country, so dairy farming district in Western Victoria. So we had strong ties to the country and to that kind of lifestyle. Even though we lived in Geelong, it was mainly for work purposes. My father was a fireman and my mother worked as a disability worker with people with intellectual disabilities. Yeah.
So did you spend many holiday out on the farm with the grandparents?
Every weekend
Nice.
and every holiday. Basically, whenever I wasn't at school or doing extracurricular activities, I was out milking cows. I loved that sort of 50-50 lifestyle of having a city life and a country life.
So apart from the farm handness, what other impact did your grandparents have on your life? Obviously very involved.
Yeah, huge impact. So grandma and pop on dad's side and nan and pa on my mum's side. All of them had a really strong faith and were practicing Christians. There was, country church is great because they're small churches, and so there's a real sense of community about them. And so earliest memories for me were going back to the farm, going to church with Nan and Pa and Grandma and Auntie Ruth, Sunday school. They're my earliest memories of my journey of faith. And that was a huge part of going back to the farm, on the weekends and school holidays, was the opportunity to go to church and hear about God and about Jesus. And I think what I remember back at that time is just the wonderful stories that we got told as young kids and the beautiful messages behind them, especially about hope, and that's just one of the strong things that I remember from Sunday school, that there was a great sense of hope about the good news. Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing to remember at that young age, which you've carried through to, not saying you're old age now, but you're older than what you were.
That's right. That's right.
Like all of us.
Yeah. No, that's true. But no, I upon thinking about, reflecting on my journey in my faith, I actually don't remember ever a time where I didn't believe in God. I think that was how strong of an influence my grandparents were on me, and the opportunities that my mum and dad gave me by attending church and getting a Bible each year for, your birthday or Christmas or whatever. That's how strong it was, and that's how much of an impact it had in my life, that I actually can't remember when I didn't
what
believe.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So grew up then in the, did you say Presbyterian church?
That's right, yeah.
With obviously grandparents, but also parents and your sister. Did music play a big part of your life back then? Did that come into church scene as well, or was that sort of separate at the time?
I think it had a nice crossover. To be honest, my sister and I, we got into singing because Mum and Dad were looking for an hour to themselves once a week.
Well, it paid off.
Like AFL or music.
That's right, yeah. What extracurricular activities outside of school can we get them into? And we happened to be sitting around a campfire at Christmas when we were on holidays, and there was another girl that we were camping with, and she was a couple of years older than us, and she was a singer, and she started singing around the campfire, and Noni and I joined in, and Mum and Dad kind of looked at each other and went, oh, they actually have all right voices.
I've got to ask, was it Kumbaya?
No, it wasn't Kumbaya. No, it was actually the
been.
theme song to The Greatest American Hero, that 80s TV show. So I never forget it. So, yeah, Mum and Dad got us into singing lessons. And then I think just our general interest in music then flourished because we were doing singing lessons and then going to church and getting to sing these hymns. It meant just a little bit more to us. So we started to sing out a little bit stronger and started to sing some harmonies and things like that. And that's, I suppose, when a passion for, gospel music, spiritual music, probably flourished in those early singing lesson days of primary school and further on into high school.
So, okay, a bit of an interest in music and also musical theatre. That's something that you are really into. And did that sort of develop in your teenage years and so on? Yeah,
I performed in my first musical theatre show at the age of 10, I think it was, about 10. I actually played Tiny Tim in A Christmas Carol.
Tiny Tim.
Couldn't be more perfect.
I was well cast. My name was Tim and I was actually quite petite. So it was a hard one for the director.
The director was amazing.
Yes. So that was my first production way back when, and I got the theatre bug. I just fell in love with theatre and performing. Up until that point, we had just performed in singing concerts and Eisteddfods. But being a part of a production and a team and telling a bigger story, being a character, I love the creativity. I love a bit of the escapism about it. I think being the first grandchild on both sides, there is an element of show-offism that a child has. I reckon people know what I'm talking about. Because you have a willing audience.
Yeah.
Like grandparents are great for encouraging
Very true.
showing off behaviour.
Yes.
So I was probably destined to be a thespian. Yeah. And I was impersonating John Howard and Uncle Arthur and all of those great characters back when. And I would have only have been, as I said, in primary school. So musical theatre I fell in love with. And then from the age of 10 onwards, I just dreamt of treading the boards and travelling the world and being a performer. I couldn't think of anything better to do in life than just entertain.
So you went you had your schooling years in Geelong,
Yeah.
and then after school, what was the plan?
Well, you go through that year 10, year 11, year 12 period where you're planning your future. And obviously growing up on the dairy farm, I loved the farm, and there was a possibility I was actually going to go into agriculture.
Okay.
So I was really interested in that, and I was even thinking maybe even one day take over the farm.
Tractor Tim.
I also was actually okay at sports and athletics and held a few records in the sprinting, 100 metres, Victorian records and things. So I also had potentially a contract of a university offer over in Canada at one stage. Okay. So there was that opportunity. But performing really won out in the end because I loved to do it no matter how hard the work was. So I suppose I chose subjects and things that would help lead me to further educating myself in that area. And one of the big stepping stones that I would have needed to be able to have a successful career is go to a university to study musical theatre. And one of the best ones in Australia at the time was the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts. as the industry people know it, Whopper. So from the likes of Hugh Jackman and Lisa McCune had gone there. So, and I desperately wanted to go there. So I auditioned and was only one of only 8 males in all of Australia to get accepted, which was great. I mean, it was a dream come true. I was 18. Everything up until that point had really had gone the way that I had really dreamt it. And I'd been very blessed in so many areas to have achieved the things that I did. And so I felt a little bit invincible at that point in my life. I was 18. I knew who I wanted to be, knew where I wanted to go. And I flew over to Perth early February of 1999. And I'd only been over in Perth a couple of days before a tragic accident changed my life.
Wow.
Wow. Tell us about that.
Well, it's never an easy thing to tell, but to be honest, I don't have too many traumatic hookups about it. But as I said, I had flown all the way over to Perth, never lived by myself before, and as I said, felt invincible about my life. But I went swimming at a local beach over in Perth on the Saturday. It was Saturday, the 13th of February in 99, and we were at Scarborough Beach. There was myself and 3 other guys that were going to the university that I was about to attend. And a couple of them were on their surfboards out the back on waves already. One was on the beach waxing his board, and I was never a good surfer. So I was just sort of swimming in the shallows, and we'd only been there 5 minutes, and I ran into the water, and I felt sort of the sand drop away, and so I dived over an incoming wave, and unbeknownst to me, there was a sandbar on the other side. And the wave kind of kicked me up, kicked the legs up, and I dived headfirst into a sandbar where I hit my head and broke my neck and damaged my spinal cord, instantly paralysing me and resulting in my current condition, quadriplegia. So luckily, the 3 other guys saw me go in and pulled me out of the water, and they saved my life. And I spent 9 months in rehabilitation. I learnt of the news that I'd never walk again, which is never an easy thing to hear. And you have a lot of questions about what your life is going to be like, and that sense of invincibility disappears, and all of a sudden you become a very dependent person as opposed to an independent one. So it was a huge shock for someone that knew who they wanted to be and knew where they wanted to go, and all of a sudden found themselves in a hospital bed, lying up, looking at the roof, not able to move anything at all.
And I think you on the beach that day there were a group of Christians, right? You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, well, this is the amazing thing about my faith journey is no matter where I find myself or have found myself in my life, God has always placed Christian people in my life at the right time, at the right moment. And so, yes, just down the beach from where I had my accident was a local church group, a youth group, that were having their sort of weekly prayer time out on the beach. And they came down the beach to help out, and they stood around me and held towels up so that the sand wouldn't blow up all over me and in my eyes. So they just stood there and holding towels and prayed. And they came to visit in rehab, a couple of times, and in fact, Easter Sunday, so a couple of months later, Easter Sunday was the first time I was allowed out of rehab, out of hospital. It was my first day trip, and I still had my metal halo traction on and everything, and I was allowed to actually go to Easter Sunday service. We went to that church from where the kids were, and it's a pretty special moment, something that I'll never forget.
So how do you move forward, Tim? Like, that's a huge thing to happen to anyone, particularly so young in your life. But you have, we know you today, and you've forged out a path for your own. You're an accomplished performer, singer, You've been on TV, you're the guy down at South Bank who people know. So you managed to bounce back from that somehow. And you want to tell us about hope in the midst of all of that, and just what God has taught you through this.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Nath, because it's traumatic experiences like that really challenge your faith, and you have so many questions for God. Why me? Why now? Why this?
Yeah.
And I had such a great foundational upbringing early on in my life, but at that particular point in my life, I myself had probably fallen away from my connection with the church. I still had a very strong faith and has always felt like God has been with me. But I was travelling a very independent journey at that time.
Yeah, okay.
And so while my faith was strong, I didn't have people around me discipling me and sharing that message of hope. But as I said, God has placed people in my life all through the good times and the bad times. And so there were people either within the hospital or within the university. There were friends that actually flew all the way over from Geelong to be by my side that were there to support me and to encourage me. And in particular, a pastor, Pastor Steve Morrison, played a big part in reconnecting me with my faith, and praying with me, and slowly but surely, I had to give in to God, knowing that He was in control of this, and that I had the faith and the hope that He would help me get through it.
Yeah.
That I couldn't do it on my own. And so, I just kept praying. I kept asking for the strength to be able to do it. And God just kept placing people in my life at that time who would encourage me about that. I wouldn't say I completely changed, habits, in terms of, after my accident, I wasn't attending church regularly. I wasn't reading the Word regularly. But I still believed that He was by my side the whole time. So I feel like a lot of my strength and my faith and my hope in my journey here on earth, it comes from Him. And so I'm just truly blessed that those people that He's placed in my life have reminded me of that.
So thanks, Tim. It's amazing, mate. Tell us about Mel. Where does she fit into the picture?
Yeah, well, there's two moments in my life that, from a faith point of view, there's two moments in my life actually three moments in my life where I feel like I've really had to give over of myself and commit to dying to Christ, but living for Him. One was I did a confirmation, my profession of faith, in the Presbyterian Church at the age of 15. And I remember that quite vividly, and the promise that I made and things, and I hold that very close to my heart. Obviously, that the second time was my accident and what was able to help me get through that. But the third time was God placing this incredible woman in my life in 2006. When I met Mel, I we met in interesting circumstances, which that's a story for another day. But it was basically at a gig. So, and I have never been a brave one to just go up and introduce myself and, ask for a number or, but I saw her and met her on this night, and she just told me about who she was and what she did, and her passion for her work, which is in child welfare. And I fell in love with her. And but unbeknownst to me at the time, this is a reflection thing. I look back on it and go, yeah, God's done it again. He's placed her in my life because I needed a refocus about my faith and my connection to God. And when Mel and I started dating, I knew that she was a Christian girl. I knew she was a strong believer, and her knowledge of faith and knowledge of the word actually scared me because it was just so strong and so passionate and so true.
Like a walking Bible.
Oh, yeah, that, but just her belief was stronger than mine, and it scared me because I wanted to match it but felt I couldn't. But actually, she was exactly what I needed. She just needed to really refocus me. And so the day I went back to church and haven't looked back since was the Easter Sunday, was our first Easter together. So about 5 months after we started dating.
Okay.
And I went back to church because I just didn't want to go back for, I found a girl and I want to impress her. I was waiting for God to actually tell me, Tim, today's the day you go back to church and you connect up with people and you be led by fellow Christians. And so I went back on that Easter Sunday, and that was just one of those moments where it was like a whole profession of faith all over again. And I knew I was there for the right reasons, and I knew that a strong Christ-like centered life was going to have to be lived by someone who attended church and read the word and had a partner in their life that they could share a faith journey with.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't be the man I am today without the work that God has done through her in my life. And so I'm a very blessed man that he chose her for me.
That's great. And so, I mean, since meeting Mel and obviously now as a husband and a father, how does your faith work out in those aspects of life for you?
Yeah, well, I still have this really healthy. It's not a fear now; it's an acceptance and an acknowledgement of the incredible faith that my wife has. That I take strength from her, but also know that I do have to play that role of head of the family, and I've had to learn that. A lot over the years, and how grateful I am that DC have, Biblical Manhood Conference to learn more about that. And there are incredible men that I have learnt from and that have discipled me over these last few years about how to be a good husband and be a good father in a faithful way. And I've really enjoyed that challenge. I'm not perfect at it. I'm
None of us
very I'm very full of faults in that area. But as long as I keep trying, that's the best I can do. I just got to say that being a father is one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had, and it's also been one of the most challenging. Not only just the physical side of things in terms of being able to father a child with someone with my level of disability, but I've had to learn how to communicate better, and I find communication is just the key to teaching, isn't it? And learning, and so Nelson and I have incredible conversations, and I'm so excited as a father to be able to hopefully lay the same foundations down that my grandparents gave me. And that, whilst my parents have slightly fallen away from their faith, and that's a hard one to have. Nelson's grandparents not believers at this stage. I pray and hope that one day they come back to the fold, and I know that it's in there because they gave that to me early on in my life. But actually bringing Nelson up in a Christian household, it's kind of a wonderful influence on grandparents.
Yes.
Like, we're going to set those rules of, we always say grace before dinner and we read the Bible, and to see them doing that for him makes my heart so full. And we just hope that, God is pleased with that, and that one day Nelson too makes that same profession of faith down the track that I remember doing so young.
That's cool, man. Now, tell us a bit more about some of the advocacy work that you do. I know you do stuff with like guide dogs, and you've got a spinal cord stuff, and you visit people in hospital. Tell us about your passions and that sense of calling that you have in some of those areas, and you do a bunch of stuff. And tell us about that, mate.
Well, I think because I have such a passion for the arts, and I have a wonderful understanding of a life lived different in terms of disability.
Yeah.
That I've come to realise that those areas of my life, there are incredible ways to serve other people. Like, you could be very, very selfish and very independent, very egotistical about the work in the arts, and even in your own advocacy of achieving success through adversity and things. But what I've found is that because I've not been able to do this on my own, that I've needed so many people in my life to be able to help me achieve the things that I've achieved, I feel a sense of duty, and I feel like there is that calling that I have the ability to be able to maybe have an impact on others. So I try and do that through my advocacy work in the disability field with assistance dogs, as I have my own assistance dog, Casper. And I connect myself up with disability organisations, or I'm in at the PA hospital playing a peer support role and teaching singing in there to help with respiratory issues that people with spinal cord injuries have. So I'm trying to pass on what I have learnt and what people have encouraged me to get out of myself to help others get that out of themselves. And even in the arts too, from a singing point of view, I hope that that people see in me someone who's willing to give more of himself than what he takes. I feel like that's God's calling for me, and if I can show God's light through my passion and my exuberance for life, that might encourage others to get the most out of theirs, and to believe that they can achieve the same things themselves, and no matter what adversity they face.
That's just a beautiful thing regardless. But for us as Christians, we can see, the beauty of the gospel in that, because, God has shown you grace that you are now wanting to pass on and show others, and just be, that loving, kind mentor, whether it be in faith or in adversity or the things that you've experienced, passing that on to others. So it's great. It's beautiful. And it's good for us to hear that too, because I know a lot of people wouldn't know a lot of those things about you and your life. It makes a lot of sense, and it's so good to see that whole picture of faith in your life.
And to see the faithfulness of God through the way that he's been teaching you so much about himself through those different experiences, and that you have a desire to, share his gospel and his love with people around you.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to my nan during the week, and we often have conversations about what she might be reading and where she's at in the Bible and things. My nan's nearly 90, and she's had a strong faith all the way through her life. She's my rock, my other rock.
Yes.
one thing she said to me this week was that she's never stopped learning.
Wow.
And I kind of look at that and go, she's got 50 years on me and she's still learning. And so what a great reminder that I just have to open my mind, open my heart, let God do the work inside of me and never stop learning about his wonder. And we're never going to find out all of the magical things until that incredible day that that hopefully God returns and that we are made in His image.
Yeah.
And that's the day we look forward to.
Yeah,
Amen.
with new bodies and glorified and all of that. That's great.
It's exciting.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
It's really good. Mate, your encouragement, we're really blessed to have you in our faith community. You really do bless and encourage us and all of us. And so we want to just thank you for coming in and sharing your story.
Thanks, Nate.
Good on you,
Tim.
George.
See ya. If you'd like more information about what's going on at Disciples Church, check out our website.
Or email us at podcast@disciples.org.au if you have any questions or feedback. Thanks for listening in, and we'll see you next week.